somehow the actions of a state legislator knocking on the door of a governor who's signing a law that impacts her constituents, why her actions are somehow so dangerous and criminal that she got charged with 2 felonies. I've got news for the state of Georgia and for those who are trying to take the people's voices. We're going to keep on, in various ways, we're going to keep on knocking on that door. Because that wasn't just Representative Cannon knocking on the door. The people are knocking on the door saying that this democracy belongs to us. It doesn't belong to the politicians. And in this moment, we're going to stand up for that sacred American right, one person, one vote.
Senator, do you feel like the ball with your Democratic colleagues who are still holdouts on getting rid of the filibuster?
What was that?
Do you think this will move the ball at all with your Democratic colleagues who are still holding out on the filibuster?
We will see, but folks keep asking what we are going to do about the filibuster. I think they ought to ask my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, what are they going to do about voting rights? The question really is not, where do I stand on the filibuster? That's a Senate rule. The most fundamental question is, where do you stand on voting rights? We wouldn't have to have this debate about the filibuster, at least on this issue, if the folks on the other side would do the right thing and stand for voting rights and vote the bill up. They can vote the bill up. Why won't they stand up for voting rights? They see what's happening right here in Georgia. They see legislators deciding that it's a crime to give people water who are standing in lines that they're making longer. And so I'm a member of the Senate. I respect its traditions. I'm honored to be there to represent the people of Georgia. But the issue of voting rights is about the democracy itself. It's much bigger than any Senate rule.
Joining us now live is Senator Raphael Warnock from the great state of Georgia. It has been a busy day and a busy 24 hours for you, sir. Thank you so much for making time to be here with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Always great to be with you.
Let me just ask you first if you have any update for us on the situation with State Representative Park Cannon. She obviously, we all saw the footage of how she was handcuffed and dragged through the state capitol, taken into custody. It was shocking even after seeing that to learn that she had been charged with 2 felonies. Can you give us any update on that situation?
Well, first of all, you know, it's heartbreaking to watch that footage, and I've seen it a few times now. I've known Representative Cannon for several years. I'm her pastor. She is a brilliant young woman, deeply committed to public service. She shouldn't have had to endure this kind of insult and injury for standing up for her constituents and their right to be heard in their own democracy. And so she is taking some quiet time. We talked about that last night, and she just needs a little time to be still. And know that there is a power greater than the machinations of people who are using their office to try to silence the voices of the people.
When you talked last night at the jail, when you went to the facility where she was being held, and when you spoke with reporters this morning, you talked about how this fight is now even more joined than it was, that this fight goes on and that, in your words, we will not go back. Tell me what that fight looks like now. We've been covering a lawsuit, for example, brought by Mark Elias on behalf of a number of Georgia organizations, to try to stop this in court. What else do you see as the components of the fight against this?
Well, let me be very clear to the folks who are watching tonight. If you think that this is something happening down in Georgia, you are misapprehending the moment that we're living in. If you think that this is something happening to black voters, you still don't quite clearly understand. This is a defining moment for the American democracy. If this is happening in the state capitol in Georgia, it will not take very long for it to visit a state capital near you. Because clearly, while there is the reverberations of race, our ongoing struggle in America here, the ways in which poor people, young people are marginalized in various ways. In a real sense, this is about something much more profound than that. It is about whether we are who we say we are. Either we're a democracy or we're not. Either we believe in the idea of one person, one vote, or we don't. Either I'm a citizen or I'm not. These are politicians who are trying to hold on to power. That's what this is. It's a power struggle, and they've decided that they're going to hold on to power no matter what, even if it costs the democracy itself. And the only people ultimately who can correct this are the people themselves. And so we've all got to stand up, say no to this. History is watching us, and our children are counting on us.
I described this a few moments ago as something that feels quite brazen. And I mean that almost in a technical sense. I feel like in the entire time that I've been an adult, and certainly the time that I've been working in the news media, I've been following and reporting on Republican efforts here or there to try to roll back voting rights and to try to make it more difficult to vote, for them to try to shrink the electorate, the available electorate, so that it's more to their liking, push out people who are on the margins, particularly people of color, particularly people who are likely to vote Democratic. But it does feel now like something new is happening, that there is a brazenness and a shamelessness and just an overt willingness to shove against democracy, as evidenced by the Republican lawyer for the state of Arizona who told the Supreme Court the reason they were pushing new voting restrictions in Arizona was because it gave them an electoral advantage. They didn't used to admit that. The reason I say that and spell it out is because I feel like that revelation for me is at odds with the kind of hope that I'm hearing you articulate when you say that reporters should ask Republicans about voting rights, that it shouldn't just be about Democrats trying to beat them by getting rid of the filibuster so they can go around them, that Republicans need to be asked about where they stand on voting rights. I feel like we know, and it's not good.
Well, you know, I am a deeply hopeful person, and hope is a little different from optimism. Hope is the recognition that, yeah, we are in a serious fight for what is good, what is true, what is righteous, and evil is well-financed and determined. I understand that. But, you know, as bad, for example, as this bill is, or this law, it's now on the books, is, and it's terrible. It would be even worse if it were not for the fact that people stood up and made noise about it. And so I don't want people to underestimate the power of their own voice. You talked about it earlier in the segment on Virginia, a change that we don't think is possible. When it happens, it almost feels like all of a sudden, although it wasn't all of a sudden at all. Dr. King used to say that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. It's our job to keep bending the arc. And so as a member of the United States Senate, I'm going to continue to speak to my colleagues, but on the Democratic side, to be sure. But I'm not willing to give up, even with talking to my Republican colleagues. I'm not going to let them off the hook so easily. And what they decide to do, history will judge them for that. But I believe in democracy. I believe that democracy, as I said a couple weeks ago, is the political enactment of a spiritual idea, this noble and amazing idea that all of us have within us a spark of the divine, the Imago Dei, some sense of the image of God. And therefore, we ought to have a voice in the direction of the country and our destiny within it. And when that happens, you know, good things can happen. If we hadn't won this election, if Georgia hadn't stood up, the people of Georgia, we wouldn't have passed that $1.9 trillion bill we just passed, the American Rescue Plan that's going to put shots and arms and money in people's pockets so that they can buy food and a coat for their kids. That is what happens when democracy is alive and vibrant. That is happening right now. We are witnessing a Georgia that stood up and, in a real sense, in my mind, saved the country. And now voter suppression, yeah, Georgia again, ground zero. This wrestling in the soul of our state between its past and the possibilities of its future Same thing in the country writ large. This is a moment. And I say to the corporations in Georgia that have been entirely too silent in this moment, that this is what Dr. King meant when he said that there comes a time when silence is betrayal. All of us have got to use our voices, our vote, and I'm going to use every fiber, every effort, everything within me to stand up for our democracy.
Senator Raphael Warnock of the great state of Georgia. Sir, thank you for joining us tonight. I know this has been a really intense time for you and for Georgia. I appreciate you making time to be here.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.